Trisha, sorry about your loss. I'm very.
It's your fault!
Your children. Imagine how you must feel. They heard her crying.
They're safe now.
But how they feel the sting of her tears.
Sing.
And she will come. Who? I don't know. Father, can you help us?
Is she
The church works with people who specialize in situations like this.
coming?
She's already here.
You. What do we do?
Has no bounds.
Rinsing.
What if a centuries-old legend was real and it was coming for your children next? The Curse of La Llorona turns a chilling Mexican folklore into a terrifying horror story filled with dark secrets, jump scares, and hidden facts you probably missed. Today on Movies Explained Ms., let's uncover the real curse behind La Llorona and the truth this movie doesn't want you to forget. The Curse of La Llorona, also known in some regions as The Curse of the Weeping Woman, is a 2019 American supernatural horror movie directed by Michael Chaves. This film marked his first time directing a full-length feature. The story was written by Mickey Daughtry and Tobias Iaconis. Inspired by the famous Latin American legend of La Llorona, the movie stars Linda Cardellini, Raymond Cruz, and Patricia Voltilda scares. It is set in Los Angeles in the year 1973 and follows a worried mother who must protect her children from an evil and powerful spirit that wants to take them away. The film was produced by James Wan under his Atomic Monster production company and, while it is not officially part of the main series, it is set within the world of the Conjuring universe. The Curse of La Llorona first premiered at the South by Southwest Film Festival on March 15, 2019, before being released in theaters across the United States on April 19, 2019. The movie received mostly negative reviews from critics, but despite that, it performed much better than expected at the box office. It became a financial success, earning a total of $123.1 million worldwide while being made on a relatively small budget of just $9 million. In 1673 in Mexico, a happy family is playing together in an open field. The youngest son gives his mother a necklace, and she promises she will keep it forever. Some time later, the boy goes on a walk and makes a horrifying discovery: his mother is drowning his brother in a stream. Terrified, he tries to run away, but his mother catches him. Both children are believed to have drowned, and the tragedy becomes the start of a dark legend. 300 years later, in 1973 Los Angeles, a recently widowed social worker named Anna is assigned to investigate a truancy case involving Patricia Alvarez and her two young sons. When Anna visits Patricia's home for a welfare check, she finds the children locked inside a room. Patricia desperately warns Anna to stay away from the door, but Anna insists on opening it. Patricia attacks her and is arrested by the police. Before being taken away, Patricia's sons, Carlos and Thomas, beg Anna to keep them locked in the room because it is the only place they are safe. Anna ignores their warning and sends them to a child services shelter, not realizing she has placed them in grave danger. At the shelter, Thomas begins sleepwalking, and Carlos follows him. The two boys then see a mysterious woman wearing a white dress, who suddenly attacks them. The boys are later found drowned in a river, and Anna is called to the scene. She brings her own children, Chris and Sam, who wait in the car while she investigates. Nearby, Patricia is screaming in despair, accusing Anna of causing her sons' deaths. Patricia claims she had tried to protect her children from an evil spirit known as La Llorona and says Anna took them away from safety. While Anna is distracted, Chris leaves the car and comes face to face with La Llorona, also known as the Weeping Woman. The spirit grabs his wrist, leaving painful burn marks. La Llorona follows him back to the car but disappears when Anna returns. The family quickly leaves the area. The next day, Anna visits Father Perez to ask if the legend of La Llorona could be real. Soon after, strange and frightening events begin happening around Anna's home. La Llorona attacks Sam as well, leaving the same burn marks on him. Anna later speaks with Patricia again and learns that Patricia has an alibi during the time her sons died. However, Patricia admits that in her anger toward Anna, she prayed to La Llorona to take Anna's children and return her own. Shortly after, Anna directly encounters La Llorona when the spirit tries to drown Sam in the bathtub, leaving burn marks on Anna's arm as well. Desperate for help, Anna returns to Father Perez, who connects the case to his past experiences with supernatural evil. He tells her about Rafael Olvera, a former priest who is now a folk healer known as a curandero. Rafael comes to Anna's house and sets up protective charms and rituals. That night, La Llorona attacks repeatedly and nearly drowns Anna and Sam in the backyard pool. During the struggle, Anna manages to rip off La Llorona's necklace. Suddenly, Patricia arrives with a gun, intending to offer Anna's children to La Llorona. Sam and Chris manage to escape. Patricia then realizes she cannot cause another mother the same pain she suffered. She regains control and releases Anna, allowing her to save her children. Chris distracts La Llorona by holding up the necklace, reminding her of the son she lost. For a moment, La Llorona appears human again and gently touches Chris, believing he is her child. The illusion breaks when Sam reveals a mirror, and La Llorona becomes violent once more. Anna finally defeats La Llorona by stabbing her with a cross made from a fire tree, which grew near the river where La Llorona drowned her children and served as a silent witness to the crime. The spirit is destroyed. After everything is over, Anna and her children thank Raphael for saving their lives. As he leaves, Anna notices a puddle of water on the road and looks down into it, unsure if the nightmare is truly over. The film opens in 1673 Mexico, where a seemingly idyllic family moment turns horrific. A young boy presents his mother with a handmade necklace, symbolizing their bond. As they frolic in a sun-drenched field, the mother, dressed in flowing white garments evocative of colonial-era attire, accepts the gift with apparent affection. However, the scene shifts abruptly when the boy wanders off and stumbles upon a nightmarish sight, his mother forcibly drowning his brother in a nearby stream. The water churns violently as the child struggles, bubbles rising in desperate gasps. Horrified, the boy flees, but the mother pursues him with unnatural speed, her face twisted in a mix of rage and sorrow. She catches him, and the implication is clear: the boy meets the same watery fate. This prologue sets the tone for the supernatural terror, establishing La Llorona as a vengeful spirit born from maternal betrayal and loss, her cries echoing through centuries. Fast forward to 1973 Los Angeles, a bustling city marked by social unrest and cultural shifts. Anna Tate Garcia, a dedicated social worker played by Linda Cardellini, navigates the challenges of single motherhood after her husband's recent death. As a caseworker for child services, Anna is immersed in the gritty realities of family crises, often dealing with neglect and abuse cases in underserved communities. Her latest assignment involves Patricia Alvarez, portrayed by Patricia Scares, a distraught mother whose two sons, Carlos and Thomas, have been absent from school. Patricia's home is a dimly lit apartment filled with religious icons, candles flickering against walls adorned with crucifixes and saint statues, hinting at her deep-rooted faith and fear. Upon arriving for a welfare check, Anna encounters resistance. Patricia, wild-eyed and pleading, warns her not to interfere, claiming an unseen force threatens her children. Ignoring the pleas, Anna insists on seeing the boys, who are locked behind a door marked with protective symbols scratched into the wood. When Patricia attacks in a frenzy, police intervene, arresting her and allowing Anna to remove Carlos and Thomas to a shelter. The boys, wide-eyed and silent, whisper warnings about the woman who cries, but Anna dismisses it as trauma-induced fantasy. That night at the shelter, Thomas sleepwalks through shadowed hallways, his brother Carlos trailing behind. They encounter a spectral figure in white, her veil obscuring a decayed face, and she attacks with chilling efficiency, dragging them toward water sources within the building. The next morning, tragedy strikes. The boys are found drowned in a nearby river, their bodies pale and lifeless amid the rushing current. Anna is summoned to the scene, her professional detachment cracking as she grapples with guilt. She brings her own children, Chris and Samantha, to wait in the car, a decision that exposes them to danger. Chris, curious and adventurous, ventures out and confronts La Llorona firsthand. The ghost seizes his wrist, leaving burn marks that resemble weeping wounds, her touch icy and searing. She stalks him back to the vehicle, her wails piercing the night air like a siren's call, but retreats when Anna returns. The family escapes, but the encounter marks the beginning of their ordeal. Back home, Anna's household, a modest suburban house with creaking floors and large windows, becomes a battleground. Unexplained phenomena escalate, doors slammed shut, water faucets gush uncontrollably, and shadows flicker with humanoid forms. La Llorona's presence is heralded by distant sobs that grow louder, echoing through vents and walls. Chris and Sam, played by Roman Christou and Janie Lynn Kingen, experience visions of the weeping woman, her dress sodden and trailing water. In one intense sequence, Sam is nearly drowned in the bathtub, the water rising supernaturally as La Llorona's hands emerge from the depths, pulling her under. Anna intervenes, but not before sustaining similar burns on her arm, physical manifestations of the curse's grip. Seeking answers, Anna consults Father Perez, reprised by Tony Amendola from earlier Conjuring Universe entries. In a dimly lit church office cluttered with ancient texts and artifacts, Perez recounts the legend of La Llorona, a woman who, in a fit of jealousy over her husband's infidelity, drowned her children and then herself, condemned to wander eternally, stealing other children to replace her own. He connects it to his past encounters with demonic forces, suggesting the spirit preys on grieving families. Despite his advice, the attacks intensify. La Llorona attempts to drown Sam in the family pool during a stormy night, the water churning like a vortex as lightning illuminates her ghastly form. Desperate, Anna turns to Rafael Olvera, a former priest turned shaman, embodied by Raymond Cruz. Rafael, with his arsenal of folk remedies, herbs, eggs for cleansing rituals, and a cross carved from a fire tree that witnessed La Llorona's original sins, fortifies the home. He explains the spirit's vulnerabilities, mirrors that reveal her true decayed self, and the necklace from the prologue, a symbol of lost innocence. That night, as La Llorona assaults the house, breaking through barriers with floods and wind, Patricia arrives armed, driven by vengeance. She had prayed to La Llorona to take Anna's children instead, but regrets it upon seeing the terror unfold. In the climax, Chris and Sam hide while Anna confronts the ghost. Chris uses the necklace, found earlier, to momentarily humanize La Llorona, her face softening into that of a sorrowful mother. But the illusion shatters when Sam holds up a mirror, forcing the spirit to see her monstrous reality. Anna stabs her with the fire tree cross, the wood piercing her ethereal form and causing her to dissolve in a burst of water and light. Peace returns, but the final shot lingers on a puddle reflecting Anna's face, hinting at lingering shadows. This narrative structure weaves historical folklore with 1970s American suburbia, using water as a recurring motif for drowning and rebirth. The plot builds tension through escalating encounters, each more personal than the last, culminating in a ritualistic showdown that blends Catholic exorcism with indigenous shamanism. The film's pacing relies on jump scares or sudden apparitions in mirrors or behind curtains, but also delves into psychological horror, exploring Anna's guilt over her husband's death and her fears of failing as a mother. Expanding on the plot, the initial Mexico sequence serves as more than exposition. It establishes La Llorona's tragic backstory. The mother's act stems from betrayal, a theme echoed in Anna's widowhood and Patricia's desperation. Each drowning attempt mirrors this origin: children pulled under by invisible forces, their cries muffled by water. In Los Angeles, the urban setting contrasts the rural folklore, symbolizing how ancient curses adapt to modern life. Anna's job as a social worker adds irony as she saves children professionally but endangers her own by ignoring warnings, paralleling La Llorona's maternal failure. The shelter scene with Carlos and Thomas heightens suspense. Thomas's sleepwalking leads them to a utility room where pipes burst, flooding the floor as La Llorona emerges from the shadows, her veil lifting to reveal hollow eyes and rotting skin. The boys' deaths propel the story forward, shifting focus to Anna's family. Chris's burn marks become plot devices, worsening with each encounter, symbolizing the curse's progression. Sam's bathtub incident is visceral, bubbles from her submerged form, Anna's frantic pulls, and La Llorona's submerged face pressing against the porcelain. Father Perez's involvement bridges the supernatural and religious, his tales of a haunted doll adding layers for conjuring fans. Raphael's rituals introduce cultural authenticity, using eggs to absorb evil, scattering seeds to trap spirits, a contrasting Western skepticism. The pool sequence is chaotic, rain merges with supernatural floods, La Llorona swimming like a predator, her wails drowning out thunder. Patricia's redemption arc adds depth, her gun-wielding arrival turns ally, humanizing her grief. The finale's use of the necklace and mirror cleverly ties back to the prologue, emphasizing reflection and lost humanity. Anna's stab with the cross is cathartic, the spirit's dissolution a release of centuries-old pain. Yet, the puddle's reflection suggests curses linger, leaving viewers with unease. Linda Cardellini anchors the film as Anna Tate Garcia, a widow balancing grief and duty. Her performance captures a woman unraveling. Initial composure gives way to wide-eyed terror, her voice cracking in pleas for help. Cardellini's subtle expressions are furrowed brows during investigations, tender smiles with her child Rena humanize Anna, making her relatable amid horror. As a social worker, she embodies 1970s feminism, independent yet vulnerable, her arc from skeptic to believer compelling. Roman Cristo as Chris Garcia brings youthful innocence mixed with bravery. At around 10 years old, Chris is the curious sibling, his encounters with La Llorona marked by frozen fear turning to resourcefulness. Cristo's wide eyes and trembling hands convey terror authentically, especially in the necklace scene where he confronts the ghost, his small frame contrasting her towering presence. Janie Lynn Kinchin portrays Samantha Garcia, the younger, more vulnerable child. Sam's wide-eyed wonder turns to screams during attacks, her performance evoking empathy. Kinchin's portrayal in Drowning Son is a gasping, flailing who adds visceral intensity, highlighting childhood innocence lost to supernatural forces. Raymond Cruz as Rafael Alvarez steals scenes with charismatic authority. As the shaman, Cruz infuses humor and wisdom, his gravelly voice delivering incantations with conviction. Rafael's backstory, a priest who left the church but not faith, who adds depth. Cruz's physicality in rituals, wielding herbs, drawing symbols, grounding the supernatural. Marisol Ramirez embodies La Llorona with eerie grace. Under heavy makeup, a pale skin, black veins, hollow eyes, Ramirez conveys tragedy through movements, gliding silently, then lunging ferociously. Her wails, a mix of sorrow and rage, are chilling, her human moments, caressing Chris, revealing the mother's lingering pain. Patricia Tilde inverted exclamation mark scares as Patricia Alvarez delivers raw emotion. Her frantic warnings and later remorse portray a mother driven mad by loss. Tilde inverted exclamation mark scares is intense gaze and outbursts, making Patricia sympathetic despite her actions. Tony Amendola reprises Father Perez with quiet gravitas. His exposition feels natural, Amendola's calm demeanor contrasting the chaos, linking to broader universe lore. Supporting roles like Sean Patrick Thomas as Detective Cooper add realism. His skepticism mirrors Anna's initial doubt. The child actors Oliver Alexander and Aidan Lewandowski as Carlos and Thomas evoke pity, their silent warnings foreshadowing doom. Overall, the cast elevates the script, blending horror with emotional depth. Cardellini's lead performance, in particular, carries the film, her chemistry with the children making family stakes palpable. The film's development began in October 2017 when New Line Cinema announced a horror project initially titled The Children, directed by newcomer Michael Chaves. Produced by James Wan through Atomic Monster and Gary Doberman, known for It and Annabelle scripts, it aimed to blend folklore with modern scares. By July 2018, it was retitled The Curse of La Llorona, drawing from Latin American legend. Writers Mickey Daughtry and Tobias Iaconis crafted the screenplay, focusing on a 1970s setting to evoke period authenticity. Casting prioritized diversity and talent. Linda Cardellini was cast as Anna in July 2018, bringing her dramatic range from Freaks and Geeks and Avengers Endgame. Raymond Cruz joined as Raphael, leveraging his Breaking Bad intensity. Patricia Scares, a Venezuelan actress, added cultural authenticity to Patricia. Young actors Roman Cristo and Janie Lynn Kinchin were selected for their natural expressiveness. Marisol Ramirez underwent extensive makeup tests for La Llorona, ensuring the design honored folklore while terrifying. Principal photography started in late 2017 in Los Angeles, wrapping by November. Locations included practical sets like Hannah's home, built for water effects, and exteriors mimicking 1970s LA. Chaves, in his feature debut, emphasized practical effects, flooding sets, wire work for ghostly movements. Cinematographer Michael Burgess used dim lighting and wide angles to build dread, inspired by The Conjuring's style. Challenges included child actors' limited hours, requiring precise scheduling for night shoots. Post-production involved editor Peter Gvozda's tightening pacing for jump scares. Composer Joseph Bishara created a score with eerie strings and vocal wails, enhancing atmosphere. Visual effects by Dneg added subtle enhancements, like La Llorona's dissolving form. Marketing revealed ties to the Conjuring universe via Father Perez, though Chaves clarified it's not a direct entry. Budgeted at $9 million, the production focused on efficiency, using Wan's horror expertise for maximum impact. Behind-the-scenes footage shows Wan on set, advising on tension building, while Chaves discussed cultural sensitivity in portraying the legend. The film explores themes of maternal grief and loss, central to La Llorona's folklore. The legend originates from Latin American tales of a woman who drowns her children after betrayal, wandering rivers in eternal sorrow. In the movie, this manifests as a curse preying on mothers, symbolizing unresolved trauma. Anna's widowhood parallels La Llorona's abandonment, her guilt amplifying the horror. Cultural significance lies in its representation of Latinx folklore in mainstream cinema. Though criticized for whitewashing Anna as a white protagonist saving Latinx children evokes savior tropes. The 1973 setting nods to Chicano movements, highlighting immigrant struggles and cultural clashes. Feminist readings view La Llorona as a symbol of patriarchal oppression. Her act stems from male infidelity, punishing women eternally. The film subverts this by empowering Anna and Patricia through redemption. However, some argue it dilutes indigenous roots, linking La Llorona to Aztec goddesses like Cotlicuauhtlamalinch, copyright S's interpreter, representing colonial trauma. Comparisons to Guatemalan film La Llorona, 2019, highlight differences. The latter ties the legend to genocide, critiquing power structures, while this version focuses on personal horror. Social media reactions underscore cultural resonance. Posts discuss its impact on Latinx audiences, some praising folklore exposure, others decrying stereotypes. Thematically, water symbolizes purification and destruction, recurring in drownings and rituals. Faith blends Catholicism and shamanism, reflecting syncretic Latin American beliefs. Ultimately, the film uses horror to examine grief's haunting nature, though its cultural handling sparks debate on authenticity. Upon release, the film received mixed reviews. On Rotten Tomatoes, it holds a 26% approval rating from 187 critics, with a consensus criticizing reliance on jump scares over story depth. Metacritic scores it 41/100ths, indicating average reception. Critics like those from The New Yorker noted moments of innovation but a collapsing framework. Audience scores fare better, with a B Cinema score and 5.3 on IMDb from 65,000 users, many praising scares despite cliché copyright S. Box office success was notable, opening to $26.3 million domestically, topping the weekend with a 49% Hispanic audience. Worldwide, it grossed $123.1 million against a $9 million budget, yielding profits. User reviews on IMDb highlight sleep-inducing predictability for some, while others appreciate the folklore twist. Social media buzz, especially around 2019, showed divided opinions, clips going viral for intensity, but critiques on cultural accuracy. Nominations included MTV's Most Frightened Performance for Cardellini. Though not an official Conjuring installment, it shares universe elements. Produced by One, it features Father Perez referencing Annabelle's doll, placing it in 1973 between Conjuring films. This loose connection expands the franchise's demonic lore without direct ties. Trivia abounds. A license plate goof shows a 1980s format in 1973. Crazy credits include La Llorona's cries post-credits. Behind scenes, One's involvement emphasized practical horror, with makeup for Ramirez taking hours. A sequel, The Revenge of La Llorona, entered production in 2025. Production development and pre-production. The journey toward bringing La Llorona to the big screen began in October 2017 when New Line Cinema made a significant announcement about distributing a new horror film. The studio revealed that Michael Chaves would direct the project, marking what would become his feature film directorial debut. The announcement came with considerable weight behind it, as producer James Wan, the architect of the Conjuring universe, was attached through his Atomic Monster production banner. Joining One as producers were Gary Doberman, known for his work on both It and Annabelle, and Emil Gladstone. The executive producer roster included industry heavyweights Richard Breener, Dave Neustadter, Walter Hamada, Michelle Morrissey, and Michael Clear, signaling the studio's commitment to the project. The film underwent a significant transformation during its development phase. Originally titled The Children, the project was renamed The Curse of La Llorona by July 2018. This title change reflected a strategic shift to more directly connect the film to the legendary Mexican folklore figure at its center, making the marketing more straightforward and culturally specific. The decision to base the film on the Latin American legend of La Llorona, or the Weeping Woman, provided a rich mythological foundation steeped in centuries of storytelling tradition. The screenplay came from the writing team of Mickey Daughtry and Tobias Iaconis, an interesting choice given that their previous work had been in a completely different genre. The duo's only other major writing credit at the time was the heartstring-tugging teen romance 5 Feet Apart, centered on young people with cystic fibrosis. The shift from bittersweet romantic drama to supernatural horror represented a dramatic departure for the writers, and this genre pivot would later become a point of discussion among critics evaluating the film's narrative strengths and weaknesses. For director Michael Chaves, the opportunity represented a major career breakthrough. Prior to landing this high-profile studio gig, Chaves had built his reputation directing commercials for major brands including Google, Microsoft, Ford, Facebook, Oculus, and EA Games. His transition to feature filmmaking came through an unconventional path. Chaves had previously written and directed a short film titled The Maiden, which caught the attention of producer James Wan. The short film's atmospheric tension and visual storytelling apparently impressed Wan enough to give Chaves his shot at helming a theatrical release within the Conjuring universe framework. Just before the film's release, Chaves had also directed the music video for Billie Eilish's haunting song Bury a Friend, demonstrating his ability to create unsettling visual experiences within contemporary pop culture. Casting for the film brought together a diverse ensemble. Linda Cardellini was cast in the lead role as Anna Tate Garcia, a widowed social worker and single mother navigating the challenges of protecting her children while managing a difficult caseload. Cardellini brought considerable acting credentials to the project, having earned Emmy, Screen Actors Guild, and Independent Spirit Award nominations throughout her prestigious career in both film and television. At the time of filming, she had recently completed work on the Netflix dark comedy series Dead to Me with Christina Applegate and had appeared in the Oscar-winning Best Picture Green Book alongside Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali. Her involvement lent the film a level of dramatic credibility that elevated it beyond typical horror fare. Raymond Cruz joined the cast to play Rafael Olvera, a former priest turned curandero, a folk healer or shaman who practices mysticism to combat evil spirits. Cruz's casting was particularly notable given his strong television presence, especially his memorable roles in Breaking Bad and its prequel series Better Call Saul. His character would serve as the spiritual expert helping the family combat the supernatural threat, a common archetype in horror films but one that required an actor who could bring both gravitas and authenticity to the role. Patricia Scares took on their role of Patricia Alvarez, a troubled mother whose actions set the film's supernatural events into motion. Sean Patrick Thomas rounded out the principal cast as Detective Cooper, providing the law enforcement perspective on the increasingly strange events. The cast also included Roman Christou and Janie Lynn Kingen as Anna's children Chris and Sam, with Marisol Ramirez portraying the terrifying spirit of La Llorona herself. A significant casting development emerged after the first trailer's release, when it was revealed that Tony Amendola would be returning as Father Perez, a character he had previously portrayed in the 2014 film Annabelle. This cameo appearance created a direct connection to the Conjuring universe, as Father Perez's character relates the La Llorona haunting to his previous experiences with the demonic entity attached to the Annabelle doll. However, this connection would become somewhat controversial, as director Michael Chaves repeatedly stated in interviews that despite this character crossover and James Wan's involvement as producer, The Curse of La Llorona was not an official entry into the Conjuring universe franchise. This ambiguous relationship to the larger franchise would continue to be a source of confusion and debate among fans and critics. The film was structured to take place in 1973 Los Angeles, a deliberate choice that aligned with the period settings common to many Conjuring universe films. This era provided a nostalgic visual palette and allowed the filmmakers to avoid modern technology like cell phones that could potentially undermine horror tension. However, critics would later note that beyond some period-appropriate set dressing and costume choices, the 1970s setting felt somewhat arbitrary, as the story didn't meaningfully engage with the specific cultural or historical context of that era in Los Angeles. Filming principal photography for The Curse of La Llorona took place primarily in Southern California, with the production wrapping in November 2017. The choice to film in the Los Angeles area made practical and thematic sense, as the story itself is set in 1973 Los Angeles, allowing the production to utilize authentic locations that could convincingly portray the era with appropriate modifications. The production took advantage of multiple filming locations throughout the Los Angeles area to create the film's atmospheric world. The house where Anna Garcia and her children live in the film was actually created as a composite from different locations, a common filmmaking technique that allows productions to combine the best features of multiple sites. The exterior front of Anna's house was filmed at 1649 South Hobart Boulevard in the Harvard Heights neighborhood of Los Angeles. This residential area provided the suburban American aesthetic the filmmakers sought. However, the backyard and pool sequences, which become crucial to the film's climactic confrontations with La Llorona, were filmed at an entirely different location. These scenes were shot at the Warner Brothers Ranch in Burbank, California, utilizing a standing set that has appeared in numerous productions over the decades. The pool featured in the film had previously been showcased in many productions, most notably appearing in the holiday classic National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. The house facade at the Warner Brothers Ranch had likewise served as a backdrop for various films and television shows, including Small Soldiers, Pleasantville, and the television series Pushing Daisies. This kind of location reuse is common in Hollywood production, allowing filmmakers to leverage well-maintained sets with production-friendly infrastructure. The church scenes in the film utilized St. Brendan Catholic Church, located at 310 South Van Ness Avenue in Los Angeles. This particular church has become something of a favorite location for filmmakers working in Los Angeles, having appeared in numerous high-profile productions including Fight Club, Spider-Man 3, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, Armageddon, and the iconic Guns N' Roses music video for November Rain. Interestingly, this same church also appears in another film within the Conjuring universe, the 2014 film Annabelle, creating an additional subtle connection between the films beyond Father Perez's character appearance. Cinematography duties fell to Michael Burgess, who served as the film's director of photography. Burgess brought relevant genre experience to the project, having previously worked as the director of photography on The Nun, another entry in the Conjuring universe released in 2018. His involvement helped maintain the visual continuity and aesthetic DNA that characterizes films associated with the franchise. Additionally, Burgess had worked as a second-unit cinematographer on both The Conjuring 2 and The Nun, giving him extensive familiarity with the visual language and production methodologies that define these films. An interesting production detail that garnered some media attention was the family connection between cinematographers working in the Conjuring universe. Michael Burgess is the son of Don Burgess, who served as cinematographer on The Conjuring 2. This literal genetic connection between cinematographers working on related films in the franchise created a unique continuity. Critics and industry observers noted that this familial relationship contributed to maintaining the franchise's characteristic visual style, which often features dizzyingly long tracking shots that give the camera its own perspective, revealing or concealing supernatural threats as it moves through spaces. These extended takes have become a hallmark of the series, creating immersive experiences that heighten tension and allow horror to build gradually rather than relying solely on quick cuts and sudden jolts. Director Michael Chaves worked to establish his own visual identity while remaining respectful of the established Conjuring universe aesthetic. The production utilized La Llorona herself, portrayed by Marisol Ramirez, as a decrepit apparition dressed in a white gown and veil, with distinctive makeup featuring black tears streaming down her grey face and haunting yellow eyes. The design aims to make the character both tragic and terrifying, embodying the legend's combination of maternal grief and malevolent intent. The filming process focused heavily on creating effective scare sequences, with the production designing numerous set pieces built around the horror genre's reliable mechanics: sudden gusts of wind, slamming doors and windows, portentous shots of dripping faucets, slowly unwinding car window handles, and the aforementioned swimming pool that appears prominently in the film's climactic sequences. These elements were carefully orchestrated to build suspense before delivering jump scares, following the formula that has proven commercially successful for the Conjuring universe films. Post-production: following the completion of principal photography in November 2017, the film entered post-production, where it would be shaped into its final form through editing, visual effects work, sound design, and musical scoring. Peter Gvozdas served as the film's editor, responsible for assembling the footage into a coherent narrative and ensuring the horror sequences achieved maximum effectiveness through precise timing and rhythm. Visual effects played a crucial role in bringing La Llorona's supernatural presence to life. The film employed a team of 46 visual effects artists who worked to enhance Ramirez's physical performance with digital augmentation, creating the spirit's otherworldly movements, her sudden appearances and disappearances, and various supernatural phenomena associated with her presence. The visual effects work aimed to make La Llorona feel genuinely spectral while maintaining enough physical presence to create genuine threat during her confrontations with the living characters. Sound design became another critical element in the post-production process. The film employed a team of 28 sound department professionals who crafted the audio landscape that would support and enhance the visual scares. This included creating La Llorona's signature crying sounds, the environmental audio that builds atmosphere and tension, and the sudden loud sound effects that punctuate the jump scares. The final mix was presented in multiple formats including Dolby Surround 7.1, Dolby Digital, Dolby Atmos, SDDS, and DTS:X, ensuring audiences in differently equipped theaters would experience immersive soundscapes designed to maximize the film's visceral impact. The post-production period also involved refining the film's pacing, which presented particular challenges given the need to balance exposition, character development, and horror set pieces across a relatively compact runtime. The finished film would run 93 minutes, a typical length for modern horror films that aims to maintain tension without overstaying its welcome or exhausting the audience. Music. The musical score for The Curse of La Llorona was composed by Joseph Bishara, a composer who had become closely associated with the Conjuring universe through his work on multiple franchise entries. Bishara's previous credits within the universe included The Conjuring 2, Annabelle, and Annabelle Comes Home, making him a natural choice to maintain musical continuity for this spin-off project. Beyond the Conjuring universe, Bishara had also scored the Insidious franchise films, establishing himself as a go-to composer for contemporary supernatural horror. Bishara's approach to horror scoring emphasizes atmospheric tension and unsettling sonic textures over traditional melodic themes. His compositions typically feature dissonant strings, ominous low frequencies, sudden dynamic shifts, and unconventional instrumentation designed to keep audiences in a state of unease. For La Llorona, Bishara created a score that incorporated elements suggesting Mexican cultural influences while maintaining the dark, foreboding sonic palette that characterizes his horror work. The score was recorded at the Eastwood Scoring Stage, with Bishara himself conducting the orchestra. Orchestration was handled by Dana New, with music preparation by Eric Stone Rook. The technical team included Chris Spilfogel as the recording and mixing engineer, Larry Ma as the Pro Tools operator, and Fernando Morales Franchini providing additional score recording. Celeste Chada served as score coordinator, helping manage the complex logistics of the recording sessions. Peter Rotter worked as the orchestra contractor, assembling the musicians who would perform Bishara's compositions. Music editor Julie Pierce played an important role in the post-production process, working closely with the film's picture editor to ensure the musical cues were precisely timed to support the film's dramatic and horrific moments. The collaboration between music, picture editing, and sound design would prove crucial in executing the film's many jump scares and atmospheric sequences. The original motion picture soundtrack was produced by Bishara and released by Water Tower Music on April 12, 2019, just 1 week before the film's theatrical premiere. The album contains 34 tracks spanning approximately 1 hour and 2 minutes of music. Executive in charge of music for New Line Cinema was Erin Scully, while Jason Lynn served as executive in charge for Water Tower Music. Art direction for the soundtrack album was handled by Sandeep Sriram, with Kim Baum serving as soundtrack coordinator. The track listing includes compositions with evocative titles that hint at the narrative and emotional content they support. The Curse of La Llorona, Protected Ones, Lost Protector, Mirrored Passing, 2 by side, corner weeping, in window appears, curandero, folk tale to some, black tears wept, take yours instead, weeping glimpses, weeping in curtains, evening interrupted, can't be here, she was crying, held from breath, fringes of religion, a dark spirit, presence of evil, hold till dawn, among others. These titles suggest the score's narrative function in supporting specific scenes and emotional beats throughout the film. The soundtrack received standard distribution through digital platforms including Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and other streaming services, making Bishara's compositions available to fans who wanted to experience the musical component separately from the film. Physical CD releases were also manufactured for collectors and those preferring traditional formats. While Bishara's score provided the film's primary musical identity, the filmmakers also incorporated period-appropriate needle drops into the soundtrack. Most notably, Curtis Mayfield's Superfly theme appears in the film, serving as one of the few specific 1970s cultural touchstones in a movie set during that era but not deeply engaged with period-specific details. Critics would later note this inclusion felt somewhat arbitrary, as the film otherwise doesn't meaningfully explore the cultural landscape of early 1970s Los Angeles in ways that would make such musical choices feel organic to the storytelling. Release theatrical: The Curse of La Llorona premiered at South by Southwest, SXSW, on March 15, 2019, giving the film its world premiere at one of the most prominent film festivals in the United States. The SXSW premiere provided an opportunity to generate early buzz and critical response before the film's wide theatrical release. The festival setting allowed the filmmakers to present their work to a diverse audience of film enthusiasts, critics, and industry professionals, though the reception would prove mixed. Following its festival premiere, the film received its wide theatrical release on April 19, 2019, distributed by Warner Bros. Pictures and New Line Cinema. The release strategy positioned La Llorona to take advantage of the Easter weekend box office period, launching in the United States and several other international territories simultaneously. The release date proved strategically advantageous, as it allowed the film to capitalize on holiday weekend attendance while avoiding direct competition with major blockbusters. However, the timing also meant the film would have only one weekend to maximize its earnings before facing the unstoppable juggernaut of Avengers: Endgame, which was scheduled to open the following weekend and would inevitably dominate theater screens and audience attention. The domestic theatrical release was substantial in scale, with the film opening in 3,372 theaters across the United States and Canada. This wide release strategy reflected the studio's confidence in the film's commercial potential, backed by the proven track record of the Conjuring universe brand and the relatively modest production budgets that made profitability achievable even with moderate box office performance. Warner Bros. And New Line Cinema supported the release with an aggressive marketing campaign. Industry estimates suggested the studios spent between $35 and $40 million on domestic advertisements for the film, a significant investment that exceeded the film's actual production budget multiple times over. This marketing expenditure reflected standard industry practice for studio horror releases, where advertising costs typically dwarf production budgets as studios work to build awareness and drive opening weekend attendance. The marketing campaign emphasized the film's connection to the Conjuring universe, though somewhat ambiguously given the film's unclear canonical status within the franchise. Trailers and promotional materials highlighted producer James Wan's involvement and featured the appearance of Father Perez from Annabelle, suggesting franchise continuity while stopping short of explicitly claiming the film as an official Conjuring universe entry. The marketing also leaned heavily into the La Llorona legend itself, recognizing that the folklore figure would have significant cultural resonance, particularly with Hispanic audiences who grew up with these stories. Promotional materials emphasized the horror elements, showcasing the film's jump scares and the ghostly appearance of La Llorona herself. The tagline "She wants your children" communicated the film's core threat in stark, simple terms designed to tap into primal parental fears. Marketing imagery featured La Llorona's distinctive appearance with her white veil, haunting eyes, and black tears, creating an immediately recognizable visual brand for the film. The international rollout was equally ambitious, with the film opening in 71 markets during its opening weekend. This global release strategy aimed to capitalize on the horror genre's international appeal and the Conjuring universe's proven ability to attract audiences worldwide. Different international territories received slightly different titles and marketing approaches adapted to local markets, with some regions using the alternative title The Curse of the Weeping Woman. Thursday night preview screenings began on April 18, 2019, generating $2.75 million in early ticket sales. These preview numbers provided the first concrete indication that the film would likely exceed industry expectations for its opening weekend performance. Preview screenings have become an increasingly important component of theatrical releases, allowing studios to generate momentum heading into the official opening weekend while also providing early box office data that can inform marketing adjustments and exhibition strategies. The film opened at a time when horror cinema was experiencing a sustained period of commercial and critical success. Recent horror releases like A Quiet Place, Hereditary, and Us had demonstrated that the genre could deliver both commercial returns and critical acclaim. Within the Conjuring universe specifically, films had consistently performed well at the box office, establishing brand loyalty among horror fans who trusted the franchise to deliver effective scares. This favorable environment provided a strong context for La Llorona's release, though the film would need to deliver on audience expectations to capitalize on these advantages. Home media. Following its theatrical run, The Curse of La Llorona transitioned to home entertainment platforms through a typical studio release window. The film was released on digital HD on July 16, 2019, approximately 3 months after its theatrical premiere. This digital release allowed audiences who had missed the theatrical run or wanted to revisit the film to rent or purchase it through various digital platforms including iTunes, Amazon Prime Video, Vudu, Google Play, and other digital retailers. The physical media release followed shortly after, with Blu-ray and DVD versions arriving on August 6, 2019. The home video release included the film in multiple formats to serve different consumer preferences and equipment capabilities. The Blu-ray edition offered high-definition video quality that showcased cinematographer Michael Burgess's atmospheric visuals with greater clarity than standard definition formats, while DVD copies remained available for consumers who hadn't yet upgraded their home entertainment systems. The home media packages typically included the theatrical cut of the film along with various supplemental materials, though specific bonus features varied depending on the format and retailer. Standard supplemental content for horror releases often includes behind-the-scenes featurettes exploring the production process, interviews with cast and crew, deleted or extended scenes, and sometimes commentary tracks featuring the director and other creative personnel. These extras provide added value for purchasers while also serving as promotional tools to encourage purchases rather than rentals. The Blu-ray technical specifications delivered the film in its original 2.39:1 aspect ratio, preserving the widescreen theatrical presentation. Audio options included the various immersive sound formats created during post-production, allowing home theater enthusiasts with appropriate equipment to experience Dolby Atmos or DTS:X mixes that place sounds throughout three-dimensional space for heightened atmospheric effect. The home media release also made the film available through subscription streaming services after the initial purchase and rental windows had maximized revenue. While specific streaming distribution deals vary and change over time based on licensing agreements, Warner Bros. Films typically appear on the company's own streaming platforms along with being licensed to other services for limited periods. These streaming appearances extend the film's commercial life and accessibility long after its theatrical run has concluded. Physical media sales data for The Curse of La Llorona was not widely publicized, but horror films from the Conjuring universe have generally performed adequately in the home video market, with dedicated genre fans often collecting physical copies of franchise entries even as overall physical media sales have declined industry-wide in favor of digital and streaming options. The film's first DVD release on August 6, 2019, arrived during a period when DVD sales were in steep decline as consumers shifted to streaming services for home viewing. However, Blu-ray sales remained relatively stable among enthusiasts who valued superior picture and sound quality, while 4K Ultra HD releases began appearing for films with sufficient visual appeal to justify the premium format, though La Llorona does not appear to have received a 4K physical release, likely due to its modest box office performance and critical reception not warranting the additional production and distribution costs. Reception box office. The Curse of La Llorona significantly exceeded industry expectations at the box office, turning its modest production budget into a substantial commercial success despite receiving largely negative critical reviews. The film's financial performance demonstrated once again that horror films with strong marketing and brand recognition can achieve profitability even when critics dismiss them. The domestic opening weekend performance surprised analysts and industry observers. Pre-release tracking had projected the film to gross between $15 and $17 million from its 3,372 theater opening weekend run. These projections represented a solid but unspectacular debut that would have been respectable given the film's production budget, but nothing extraordinary. However, the film dramatically overperformed against these expectations. Opening day results on Friday, April 19, 2019, immediately signaled stronger than expected performance. The film earned $11.8 million on its first full day of wide release, a figure that included the $2.75 million generated by Thursday night preview screenings. This opening day total exceeded the recent performance of Pet Sematary, another R-rated horror film that had opened a few weeks earlier, suggesting La Llorona was connecting with audiences despite weak critical reviews. By the end of its opening weekend, The Curse of La Llorona had accumulated $26.5 million in domestic box office revenue, easily claiming the #1 position and dethroning Shazam, which had topped the box office for the previous 2 weekends. This opening weekend total represented approximately 56% above the high end of pre-release projections, making it a significant overperformance that delighted studio executives and validated their substantial marketing investment. Audience demographics for the opening weekend revealed important insights about the film's appeal. Approximately 49% of the opening weekend audience identified as Hispanic, a substantial proportion that demonstrated the film's strong resonance with Latino communities for whom the La Llorona legend holds deep cultural significance. The audience skewed relatively mature, with 60% of attendees aged 25 or older, suggesting the film attracted adult horror fans rather than primarily teenagers. The gender split leaned slightly male at 51%, a fairly balanced distribution for a horror film. Internationally, The Curse of La Llorona launched in 71 markets during its opening weekend, generating approximately $30 million in overseas box office revenue. The combined global opening weekend total reached approximately $56.5 million, an impressive start that immediately covered the film's production budget multiple times over and put it on track for strong profitability. International performance varied significantly by market, with predictable patterns based on cultural familiarity with the La Llorona legend. Mexico delivered the strongest international opening with $5.3 million from 2,432 screens, claiming a 43% market share of the top 5 films in the country and easily securing the #1 position. This dominant Mexican performance made perfect sense given the legend's origins in Mexican folklore and its deep cultural resonance throughout the country. Other Latin American markets also responded enthusiastically. Colombia generated $2.4 million from 421 screens, easily earning first place in that territory. These strong Latin American results vindicated the decision to base the film on this specific folklore figure, as the cultural connection drove audience interest and attendance in markets where the legend held particular significance. European markets delivered more mixed results. France generated $2.1 million from 254 screens, while Spain contributed $1.7 million from 330 screens. These respectable but not outstanding European numbers suggested the La Llorona legend had less cultural penetration in markets outside the Spanish-speaking world. Russia added $1.1 million from 1,758 screens, finishing third in that market. Italy earned $852,000 from 314 screens for third place, while Brazil contributed $775,000 from 561 screens and a fourth place finish. Asian markets showed modest interest. South Korea generated $1.3 million over the opening weekend from 620 screens, accumulating a total opening of $1.25 million including preview screenings and securing second place. India contributed $1.1 million for a number one finish in that market, while Indonesia added $1.6 million. These Asian market results, while not spectacular, contributed meaningfully to the global total. The film's second weekend saw the inevitable sharp decline typical of horror films that front-load their earnings with strong opening weekends before word of mouth and critical reviews dampen subsequent attendance. The Curse of La Llorona fell 69.5% from its opening weekend to gross $8 million in its second weekend, dropping from first place to third position. This steep drop-off, while substantial, aligned with typical patterns for horror films that generate big opening weekends through effective marketing but lack the critical acclaim or audience enthusiasm to sustain strongholds in subsequent weeks. By the end of its complete theatrical run, The Curse of La Llorona had accumulated $54.7 million in the United States and Canada. International markets contributed an additional $68.4 million. Bringing the worldwide total to $123.1 million against a production budget of just $9 million. These final numbers represented a clear commercial success, with the film earning more than 13 times its production budget globally. Industry publication Deadline Hollywood calculated the film's net profit at $45.6 million when factoring together all expenses and revenues. This profitability calculation considers not just the production budget but also marketing costs, distribution expenses, theater owner revenue shares, and other factors that determine whether a film actually makes money for the studio. By this more comprehensive measure, The Curse of La Llorona ranked as one of the more profitable releases of 2019, demonstrating that modestly budgeted horror films with effective marketing can generate substantial returns even when critical reception is poor. Within the Conjuring Universe franchise, however, The Curse of La Llorona represented the lowest opening weekend performance. The $26.5 million domestic opening, while exceeding expectations, fell short of Annabelle Creation's $35 million opening from 2017. This distinction as the franchise's weakest opener reinforced the film's somewhat ambiguous position within the universe, neither fully embraced as a canonical entry nor completely separated from the brand that helped drive its marketing. The film's commercial success despite critical dismissal highlighted important dynamics in contemporary horror film economics. The combination of a proven brand name in the Conjuring universe, culturally resonant source material in the La Llorona legend, effective marketing that generated awareness and interest, and a modest production budget that required relatively modest box office performance to achieve profitability created conditions where commercial success could be achieved even without critical acclaim or strong word of mouth. Critical response: The Curse of La Llorona received predominantly negative reviews from film critics, with criticism focusing on its over-reliance on jump scares, predictable plotting, lack of originality, and failure to meaningfully explore the rich cultural mythology underlying the La Llorona legend. The critical consensus suggested the film represented a formulaic, uninspired entry in an increasingly tired franchise playbook. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 26% based on 187 critic reviews, with an average rating of 4.5 out of 10. The site's critical consensus reads, "Content to coast on jump scares rather than tap into its story's creepy potential. The Curse of La Llorona arrives in theaters already broken." This harsh assessment captures the prevailing critical opinion that the film squandered its promising premise in favor of cheap, predictable scares that failed to generate genuine fear or emotional investment. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average system, assigned the film a score of 41 out of 100 based on 28 critic reviews, indicating mixed or average reviews. While this Metacritic score suggests somewhat less universal dismissal than the Rotten Tomatoes rating, it still represents a clearly negative critical reception that places the film well below the threshold of critical approval. Audience response proved somewhat more forgiving than professional critics, though still far from enthusiastic. Cinema Score, which surveys moviegoers on opening night to gauge immediate reactions, gave the film an average grade of B- on their A+ to F scale. This grade indicates audiences found the film acceptable but not particularly impressive, meeting basic genre expectations without exceeding them. Post-track surveys yielded similar lukewarm results, with audiences giving the film 2.5 out of 5 stars and only 48% offering a definite recommend rating. These audience scores suggest that while opening weekend attendees weren't outright hostile to the film, they weren't sufficiently impressed to generate strong positive word of mouth that would sustain box office performance in subsequent weeks. Critics consistently identified the film's excessive reliance on jump scares as a fundamental weakness. Reviewers noted that virtually every scare sequence followed an identical, predictable pattern: extended build-up featuring atmospheric shots of dripping water, flickering lights, or slowly opening doors, followed by sudden loud sound effects and the appearance of La Llorona accompanied by a musical sting. This formulaic approach to horror, critics argued, becomes increasingly ineffective as the film progresses, with audiences able to anticipate exactly when and how each scare will arrive. The predictability undermined the scare's effectiveness, transforming potentially frightening moments into exercises in waiting for the inevitable loud noise rather than genuine sources of dread or unease. Multiple critics observed that the film showed La Llorona too frequently and too clearly, diminishing her effectiveness as a source of fear. Horror cinema traditionally understands that suggestion and partial glimpses often prove more frightening than complete revelation, as our imaginations conjure terrors more effectively than explicit visual depictions. By repeatedly showing La Llorona in full view, often in well-lit scenes that left nothing to the imagination, the film eliminated the mystery and ambiguity that might have made her genuinely unsettling. Critics suggested the filmmakers should have kept her mostly hidden until a climactic reveal, allowing atmosphere and suggestion to carry the horror for most of the runtime. The screenplay by Mickey Daughtry and Tobias Iaconis came under particular criticism for its thin plotting, questionable character decisions, and failure to develop compelling drama or meaningful themes. Critics noted that characters consistently make obviously poor choices solely to facilitate the next scare sequence, a common criticism of horror films but one that proved particularly egregious here. These baffling decisions, which would strike any rational person as obviously dangerous or counterproductive, damaged audience identification with the characters and made it difficult to invest emotionally in their survival. The film's treatment of the La Llorona legend itself disappointed many critics, particularly those familiar with the folklore's cultural significance and thematic richness. Reviewers pointed out that the legend contains profound themes about maternal grief, betrayal, jealousy, and the consequences of violent passion, offering rich material for psychological horror that explores emotional and cultural depths. Instead, the film reduced La Llorona to a generic jump-scare monster largely indistinguishable from other pale-faced female ghosts that populate contemporary horror cinema. This whitewashing of the legend, critics argued, represented a missed opportunity to create something culturally specific and emotionally resonant rather than just another assembly line horror product. Several critics noted that setting the film in Los Angeles with a non-Latino protagonist felt like a strategic choice to make the film more palatable to mainstream American audiences, but also represented a creative compromise that weakened the material. Multiple reviewers suggested the film would have been more authentic and potentially more interesting if set in Mexico with a Mexican cast and creative team who could bring cultural knowledge and authenticity to the material. Instead, the film's American setting and perspective felt like the legend was being appropriated and stripped of its cultural context rather than genuinely explored and honored. Raymond Cruz's performance as Rafael, the curandero who helps combat La Llorona, received mixed reviews. Some critics appreciated his gruff, intense presence and the authority he brought to scenes of spiritual warfare. However, others felt his performance lacked charisma or energy, with some suggesting he seemed miscast in what was essentially a supporting role rather than lead material. The character himself drew criticism for embodying tired stereotypes about mystic foreign spiritual experts who conveniently appear to save American protagonists from supernatural threats they don't understand. Linda Cardellini's performance as Anna generally received more positive notices, with critics acknowledging her committed, professional approach to the role even when the material didn't merit such effort. Reviewers noted that Cardellini brought warmth, authenticity, and emotional depth to scenes that could have felt perfunctory in less capable hands. Her performance provided the film with more dramatic weight. The Curse of La Llorona review. This is the latest installment of the Conjuring universe, but only by a fairly loose connection. Unfortunately, it's also quite a letdown for fans of the James Wan franchise. The Curse of La Llorona is the latest addition to the franchise of the brilliant The Conjuring universe. However, for fans of the James Wan franchise, it will feel like a pretty weak addition with only the tiniest connection. Insidious could just as easily be part of the Conjuring universe. In fact, James Wan's Aquaman should also be part of the Conjuring universe by this standard. I'm sure my disappointment in this movie is palpable. Honestly, it does feel like we're wasting the potential of this awesome franchise. This started already with The Nun, which could, and should, have been a much better movie. Recommended reading. Check out our review of The Nun, which was only slightly better than The Curse of La Llorona, greater than if only The Nun had actually centered on the origin of the iconic The Conjuring character rather than being the story of another nun. Basically, I was hoping for the origin story that was teased in the rather brilliant Annabelle creation movie. Anyway, we'll focus on The Curse of La Llorona in this review. However, when the connection to the Conjuring universe is used to market the movie, we have to cover the connection as well. The Curse of La Llorona, or The Weeping Woman. I was very surprised to read the title The Curse of the Weeping Woman when I went to the press screening of a movie marketed only as The Curse of La Llorona. Little did I know that this was actually the first warning. Sure, the story is centered on Latin folklore but with a screenplay written by two white people. And yes, it does show. It does, however, feel very much like a Catholic scare story, specifically made to scare women into behaving. According to the story in The Curse of La Llorona, women are stupid, evil and vindictive. Even the little girl is tasked with behaving in the dumbest way, which is bound to irritate all horror fans. Meanwhile, the male characters get to perform all the smart and heroic acts. For the record, I did really like the young boy who was wonderfully portrayed by Roman Christou. This is very atypical for the Conjuring universe and James Wan movies in general. The one exception is Linda Cardellini's character as the mom. She's amazing, cool, and acts instinctively. Of course, she isn't Latina, which does seem like one hell of a missed opportunity for this story. Her late husband was though, and so her kids are as well. Please, just do something a broken bar now. While The Curse of La Llorona is at the sweet horror movie runtime of around 90 minutes, it feels longer. Mostly because you often wait for people to take action. All characters are very slow to react to circumstances that clearly require action. Even after realizing and recognizing that La Llorona is real, it gets tired real fast and just becomes annoying. The exception, for the most part anyway, is the mom, Anna, who is portrayed by aforementioned Linda Cardellini. You might know Linda Cardellini from the Netflix series Bloodline or the controversial Oscar winner Green Book. Anna Cardellini is often the character who reacts first. She will gladly grab a baseball bat and run towards danger to protect her kids. I've adored Linda Cardellini for years, and she's easily the best thing in The Curse of La Llorona. In general, The Curse of La Llorona has all the right bones of a brilliant horror movie with excellent cinematography and direction. Also, the actors do give good performances. The problem is with the story, and it's a big problem. Also, please drop the yellow demon eyes and CGI effects. The Curse of La Llorona just isn't good enough. The director of The Curse of La Llorona is Michael Chaves, who is also directing The Conjuring 3. Fortunately, this does actually seem like a good thing, since Michael Chaves has clearly been taught well in the school of James 1. The shots and use of shadows are brilliant in The Curse of La Llorona, which is one of the few good things. As stated earlier, the problem with The Curse of La Llorona is the story. This means we can only blame the screenwriters Mickey Daughtry and Tobias Iaconis. Well, along with James Wan, since he's allowing this to be part of the Conjuring universe. Mickey Daughtry and Tobias Iaconis previously wrote the romantic drama 5 Feet Apart. That movie has been getting good reviews from users and critics alike, but it hardly makes them the obvious choice to write a horror movie. If you're a fan of the Conjuring universe, then you obviously do need to watch The Curse of La Llorona, The Weeping Woman. After all, you never know how it may play into the rest of the stories. The story in this movie takes place in 1973, which does make for future inclusion opportunities. To finish on a positive note, here's hoping Linda Cardellini will be back in another The Conjuring universe movie. She certainly deserves better than this one. The Curse of La Llorona is out in wide release in US theaters from April 19, 2019. Also, you'll be able to watch it in theaters worldwide around the same time. Director, Michael Chaves. Cast, Linda Cardellini, Patricia Velasquez, Sean Patrick Thomas, Roman Christou. Ignoring the eerie warning of a troubled mother suspected of child endangerment, a social worker and her own small kids are soon drawn into a frightening supernatural realm. Karina Scream Queen Adele Guarda. I write reviews and recaps on Heaven of Horror, and yes, it does happen that I find myself screaming when watching a good horror movie. I love psychological horror, survival horror and kick-ass women. Also, I have a huge soft spot for a good horror comedy. Oh yeah, and I absolutely hate when animals are harmed in movies, so I will immediately think less of any movie where animals are harmed for entertainment, even if the animals are just really good actors. Fortunately, horror doesn't use this nearly as much as comedy, and people assume horror lovers are the messed up ones. Go figure. The Curse of La Llorona, the latest entry in Warner Brothers and New Line's Conjuring universe, conjured $2.75 million from Thursday preview showings, while Breakthrough, a faith-based offering from Fox Disney, brought in $1.5 million from its second day of screenings. La Llorona's Halltop's recent horror counterparts Pet Sematary and Escape Room, which each took in $2.3 million in previews. The two films are hoping to dominate the Easter and Passover holiday box office, but they face stiff competition from Shazam, the tongue-in-cheek superhero flick that has topped charts for 2 weekends in a row. The domestic haul of Shazam stands at $104 million. Breakthrough, which is the first 20th Century Fox film to be released by Disney since it wrapped its deal to buy most of the studio's assets, already got a jump on the weekend, opening on Wednesday. It is expected to earn between $13 million to $20 million from 2,700 theaters during its first 5 days of release, and has brought in $3.4 million over its first 2 days. The Pixar's Chrissy Metz, of This Is Us fame, as a mother who turns to God to help her get through her son's accident on an icy lake. Roxanne Dawson directed the movie, which was produced by Devon Franklin, Miracles from Heaven, Heaven is for Real, and executive produced by NBA star Stephen Curry. Topher Grace and Josh Lucas round out the cast. The movie, which carries a $14 million price tag, is aimed at the same religious audiences who turned Heaven is for Real into a big hit when it opened in Easter of 2014. The Curse of La Llorona, a standalone movie set in the Conjuring universe, is expected to make between $15 million and $20 million when it expands to 3,400 venues. The pick is based on the Mexican folklore about the weeping woman, a figure whose grief over her lost children causes her to sow havoc. Critics hated La Llorona, but horror fans are impervious to reviews. Penguins, a documentary about the titular Arctic residents, grossed $456,000 on Thursday. The film has reeled in $956,000 since debuting on Wednesday. It is expected to generate between $5 million to $7 million from 1,800 screens in its first 5 days of release. Things go bump in the night and, as an occasional change of pace, in the middle of the afternoon with a frequency that will neither surprise nor disappoint genre fans throughout. The Curse of La Llorona, an efficiently formulaic shocker inspired by the centuries-old Mexican legend of the titular bogey woman. It's set in Los Angeles during the early 1970s. For no readily apparent reason other than to justify the what-the-hell inclusion of Curtis Mayfield's Superfly theme on the soundtrack. But its true location clearly is a distant corner of producer James Wan's The Conjuring extended horror movie universe, which gets a fleeting wink-wink hat tip early on with a clever cameo appearance by Tony Amendola in his Annabelle role as Father Perez. Linda Cardellini strikes a credible balance of maternal instincts and mortal terror as Anna Garcia, a social worker and widowed mom who suspects the worst when she discovers a woman in her caseload has been keeping her 2 small boys locked in a closet in their apartment. Despite the mother's frantic insistence that she's been driven to extremes to protect her children from an ungodly evil, the boys are taken away from her and placed in foster care. Within hours, they are found drowned in a reservoir. And Patricia scares. The distraught mom is considered a prime suspect. As it turns out, however, the real culprit is La Llorona, aka the Weeping Woman, the malevolent spirit of a 17th century Mexican beauty who drowned her own 2 children in a jealous rage to punish her unfaithful husband, and now walks the earth to claim, or kill, other unfortunate youngsters. But wait, there's more, because Patricia blames Anna for her tragic loss. She prays for La Llorona to add the social worker's young children, Samantha, Janie Lynn Kingen, and Roman Chris too, to her hit list. It doesn't take long for prayers to be answered. First-time feature director Michael Chaves is a great deal short of subtle while, as regularly as clockwork, he utilizes La Llorona, portrayed by Marisol Ramirez as a decrepit apparition in a white gown and veil, to provide the jarring payoff for slow build scenes featuring sudden gusts of wind, slamming doors and windows, and portentous shots of dripping faucets, unwinding car window handles, and a backyard swimming pool that appears roughly the size of Rhode Island. But, then again, people who buy tickets for a Rock the House scarefest like The Curse of La Llorona and, rest assured, this movie is bound to sell lots and lots of tickets to easily satisfied customers when it opens April 19th. They usually aren't in the market for nuance and understatement. No, they really want to savor the shared experience of screaming, or at least audibly expressing startlement, each time someone or something does the equivalent of sneaking up on them and yelling boo. That same audience customarily also enjoys laughing out loud at those clumps of cliche-copyright heavy, on-the-nose dialogue that sometimes deliberately, sometimes inadvertently, provide comic relief. Scriptwriters Mickey Daughtry and Tobias Iaconis provide an adequate sprinkling of such howlers, saving the best lines for Raymond Cruz as Rafael Olvera, a former priest-turned-freelance curandero, or faith healer, armed with a slew of magic potions and powders, and a sly, self-mocking wit. Cruz infuses Rafael with such incontestable authority that you almost believe he's proposing a rational game plan rather than rationalizing a plot contrivance when he tells Anna and her children that they might as well stick around their besieged house during the third act and fight La Llorona there because, really, she'd probably just follow them if they vamoosed to somewhere safer. Even if they'd flee to a place with better lighting, and without a ginormous swimming pool. Reviewed at SXSW Film Festival, headliners, March 15, 2019, MPA rating, R. Running time, 93 minutes. Crew, Director, Michael Chaves. Screenplay, Mickey Daughtry, Tobias Iaconis. Camera, Color, Michael Burgess. Editor, Peter Gvozdas. Music, Joseph Bishara. Beware the Weeping Woman. The latest film from the producers of the Conjuring universe, The Curse of La Llorona, is coming to cinemas May 3rd, and we're giving you the chance to win a bundle of haunting merchandise that will send shivers down your spine. Set in 1973 Los Angeles, the film tells the story of Anna Tate Garcia, Linda Cardellini, a social worker and widowed single mother struggling to balance the two roles while still coping with the loss of her husband. As a skeptic serving a city of believers, Anna has navigated a multitude of phantoms and superstitions in her job, usually finding personal demons lurking beneath. So, when she's called to the home of Patricia Alvarez, Patricia Velasquez, and finds her two young sons locked in a closet, she interprets their terrified mother's desperate efforts to keep them locked away as a dangerous sign of abuse. Though Anna is determined to get Patricia the help she needs, her first concern is the safety of the children. But, because she is unaware of the very real danger they face, Anna has no idea what she's about to unleash or the devastation it will cause when she places a psychiatric hold on their mother and takes the kids into protective custody. In the deepest hours of the night, a haunting cry echoes through the corridors of the children's shelter where the two boys sleep. A broken bar when their bodies are later pulled from the river. Their distraught mother lays the blame at Anna's feet, and leaves her with an eerie warning: La Llorona has her children now. A broken bar, but Anna's own could be next. When darkness descends and her kids hear the weeping woman's ominous cries, Anna is forced to confront the reality of Patricia's claims. This legendary spirit is hunting children in modern-day Los Angeles. A broken bar and her own small kids are her prey. With nowhere else to turn, Anna puts her faith in Rafael Olvera, Raymond Cruz, a former priest-turned-curandero who has been preparing for this battle all his life. Bringing his powerful faith and arsenal of spiritual totems, Raphael bands together with Anna and her kids as they batten down the hatches and arm themselves for the onslaught. When night falls and La Llorona unleashes the full force of her furious supernatural wrath, The Curse of La Llorona is produced by Emil Gladstone, Gary Doberman, IT and Annabelle Franchises, and James Wan. The Conjuring universe. Michael Chaves, who won Shriekfest's Best Super Short Film in 2016 for The Maiden, makes his feature directorial debut. Please note, this competition is open to UK residents only. Like Warner Brothers Horror on Facebook and follow @HorrorUK on Twitter for all the latest La Llorona news and information. See The Curse of La Llorona in cinemas May 3rd. A copyright 2019 Warner Brothers. Int. All rights reserved. The small print open to UK residents only. The competition will close 9th of May 2019 at 23:59 GMT. The winner will be picked at random from entries received. No cash alternative is available. No alternative prize is available to coincide with GDPR regulations. Competition entry information will not be stored once the competition has ended and the winners have been chosen and prizes sent out. The usual DCs can be found here. Good luck. To mark the release of Alien 40th Anniversary Edition, out now, we've been given one copy of the Blu-ray Steelbook to give away. In the film that birthed the wildly successful Alien franchise, the crew of the deep space tug Nostromo awaken from stasis during a voyage home to Earth when their ship's computer detects what is believed to be an alien distress signal coming from the desolate nearby moon, LV-426. While investigating, one of the crew, Kane, John Hurt, is attacked by an alien creature that latches to his face and he is rushed back to the Nostromo to receive medical treatment. Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, the ship's warrant officer, advises against Kane's return due to quarantine regulations. But her orders are ignored by Ash, Ian Holm, bringing the Nostromo under threat from a mysterious, extraterrestrial apex predator with violent and lethal survival instincts. La Llorona, the Weeping Woman, a horrifying apparition, caught between heaven and hell, trapped in a terrible fate sealed by her own hand. The mere mention of her name has struck terror around the world for generations. In life, she drowned her children in a jealous rage, throwing herself in the churning river after them as she wept in pain. Now her tears are eternal. They are lethal, and those who hear her death call in the night are doomed. La Llorona creeps in the shadows and preys on the children, desperate to replace her own. As the centuries have passed, her desire has grown more voracious, a broken bar, and her methods more terrifying. The journey toward bringing La Llorona to the big screen began in October 2017 when New Line Cinema made a significant announcement about distributing a new horror film. The studio revealed that Michael Chaves would direct the project, marking what would become his feature film directorial debut. The announcement came with considerable weight behind it, as producer James Wan, the architect of the Conjuring universe, was attached through his Atomic Monster production banner. Joining Wan as producers were Gary Doberman, known for his work on both It and Annabelle, and Emil Gladstone. The executive producer roster included industry heavyweights Richard Breener, Dave Neustadter, Walter Hamada, Michelle Morrissey, and Michael Clear, signaling the studio's commitment to the project. The film underwent a significant transformation during its development phase. Originally titled The Children, the project was renamed The Curse of La Llorona by July 2018. This title change reflected a strategic shift to more directly connect the film to the legendary Mexican folklore figure at its center, making the marketing more straightforward and culturally specific. The decision to base the film on the Latin American legend of La Llorona, or the Weeping Woman, provided a rich mythological foundation steeped in centuries of storytelling tradition. The screenplay came from the writing team of Mickey Daughtry and Tobias Iaconis, an interesting choice given that their previous work had been in a completely different genre. The duo's only other major writing credit at the time was the heartstring-tugging teen romance 5 Feet Apart, centered on young people with cystic fibrosis. The shift from bittersweet romantic drama to supernatural horror represented a dramatic departure for the writers, and this genre pivot would later become a point of discussion among critics evaluating the film's narrative strengths and weaknesses. For director Michael Chaves, the opportunity represented a major career breakthrough. Prior to landing this high-profile studio gig, Chaves had built his reputation directing commercials for major brands including Google, Microsoft, Ford, Facebook, Oculus, and EA Games. His transition to feature filmmaking came through an unconventional path. Chaves had previously written and directed a short film titled The Maiden, which caught the attention of producer James Wan. The short film's atmospheric tension and visual storytelling apparently impressed Wan enough to give Chaves his shot at helming a theatrical release within the Conjuring universe framework. Just before the film's release, Chaves had also directed the music video for Billie Eilish's haunting song Bury a Friend, demonstrating his ability to create unsettling visual experiences within contemporary pop culture. Casting for the film brought together a diverse ensemble. Linda Cardellini was cast in the lead role as Anna Tate Garcia, a widowed social worker and single mother navigating the challenges of protecting her children while managing a difficult caseload. Cardellini brought considerable acting credentials to the project, having earned Emmy, Screen Actors Guild, and Independent Spirit Award nominations throughout her prestigious career in both film and television. At the time of filming, she had recently completed work on the Netflix dark comedy series Dead to Me with Christina Applegate and had appeared in the Oscar-winning Best Picture Green Book alongside Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali. Her involvement lent the film a level of dramatic credibility that elevated it beyond typical horror fare. Raymond Cruz joined the cast to play Rafael Olvera, a former priest turned curandero, a folk healer or shaman who practices mysticism to combat evil spirits. Cruz's casting was particularly notable given his strong television presence, especially his memorable roles in Breaking Bad and its prequel series Better Call Saul. His character would serve as the spiritual expert helping the family combat the supernatural threat. a common archetype in horror films but one that required an actor who could bring both gravitas and authenticity to the role. Patricia Scares took on their role of Patricia Alvarez, a troubled mother whose actions set the film's supernatural events into motion. Sean Patrick Thomas rounded out the principal cast as Detective Cooper, providing the law enforcement perspective on the increasingly strange events. The cast also included Roman Christo and Janie Lynn Kinchen as Anna's children Chris and Sam, with Marisol Ramirez portraying the terrifying spirit of La Llorona herself. A significant casting development emerged after the first trailer's release, when it was revealed that Tony Amendola would be returning as Father Perez, a character he had previously portrayed in the 2014 film Annabelle. This cameo appearance created a direct connection to the Conjuring universe, as Father Perez's character relates the La Llorona haunting to his previous experiences with the demonic entity attached to the Annabelle doll. However, this connection would become somewhat controversial, as director Michael Chaves repeatedly stated in interviews that despite this character crossover and James Wan's involvement as producer, The Curse of La Llorona was not an official entry into the Conjuring Universe franchise. This ambiguous relationship to the larger franchise would continue to be a source of confusion and debate among fans and critics. The film was structured to take place in 1973 Los Angeles, a deliberate choice that aligned with the period settings common to many Conjuring Universe films. This era provided a nostalgic visual palette and allowed the filmmakers to avoid modern technology like cell phones that could potentially undermine horror tension. However, critics would later note that beyond some period-appropriate set dressing and costume choices, the 1970s setting felt somewhat arbitrary, as the story didn't meaningfully engage with the specific cultural or historical context of that era in Los Angeles. Filming principal photography for The Curse of La Llorona took place primarily in Southern California, with the production wrapping in November 2017. The choice to film in the Los Angeles area made practical and thematic sense, as the story itself is set in 1973 Los Angeles, allowing the production to utilize authentic locations that could convincingly portray the era with appropriate modifications. The production took advantage of multiple filming locations throughout the Los Angeles area to create the film's atmospheric world. The house where Anna Garcia and her children live in the film was actually created as a composite from different locations, a common filmmaking technique that allows productions to combine the best features of multiple sites. The exterior front of Anna's house was filmed at 1649 South Hobart Boulevard in the Harvard Heights neighborhood of Los Angeles. This residential area provided the suburban American aesthetic the filmmakers sought. However, the backyard and pool sequences, which become crucial to the film's climactic confrontations with La Llorona, were filmed at an entirely different location. These scenes were shot at the Warner Brothers Ranch in Burbank, California, utilizing a standing set that has appeared in numerous productions over the decades. The pool featured in the film had previously been showcased in many productions, most notably appearing in the holiday classic National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. The house facade at the Warner Brothers Ranch had likewise served as a backdrop for various films and television shows, including Small Soldiers, Pleasantville, and the television series Pushing Daisies. This kind of location reuse is common in Hollywood production, allowing filmmakers to leverage well-maintained sets with production-friendly infrastructure. The church scenes in the film utilized St. Brendan Catholic Church, located at 310 South Van Ness Avenue in Los Angeles. This particular church has become something of a favorite location for filmmakers working in Los Angeles, having appeared in numerous high-profile productions including Fight Club, Spider-Man 3, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, Armageddon, and the iconic Guns N' Roses music video for November Rain. Interestingly, this same church also appears in another film within the Conjuring universe, the 2014 film Annabelle, creating an additional subtle connection between the films beyond Father Perez's character appearance. Cinematography duties fell to Michael Burgess, who served as the film's director of photography. Burgess brought relevant genre experience to the project, having previously worked as the director of photography on The Nun, another entry in the Conjuring universe released in 2018. His involvement helped maintain the visual continuity and aesthetic DNA that characterizes films associated with the franchise. Additionally, Burgess had worked as a second-unit cinematographer on both The Conjuring 2 and The Nun, giving him extensive familiarity with the visual language and production methodologies that define these films. An interesting production detail that garnered some media attention was the family connection between cinematographers working in the Conjuring universe. Michael Burgess is the son of Don Burgess, who served as cinematographer on The Conjuring 2. This literal genetic connection between cinematographers working on related films in the franchise created a unique continuity. Critics and industry observers noted that this familial relationship contributed to maintaining the franchise's characteristic visual style, which often features dizzyingly long tracking shots that give the camera its own perspective, revealing or concealing supernatural threats as it moves through spaces. These extended takes have become a hallmark of the series, creating immersive experiences that heighten tension and allow horror to build gradually rather than relying solely on quick cuts and sudden jolts. Director Michael Chaves worked to establish his own visual identity while remaining respectful of the established Conjuring universe aesthetic. The production utilized La Llorona herself, portrayed by Marisol Ramirez, as a decrepit apparition dressed in a white gown and veil, with distinctive makeup featuring black tears streaming down her grey face and haunting yellow eyes. The design aimed to make the character both tragic and terrifying, embodying the legend's combination of maternal grief and malevolent intent. The filming process focused heavily on creating effective scare sequences, with the production designing numerous set pieces built around the horror genre's reliable mechanics: sudden gusts of wind, slamming doors and windows, portentous shots of dripping faucets, slowly unwinding car window handles, and the aforementioned swimming pool that appears prominently in the film's climactic sequences. These elements were carefully orchestrated to build suspense before delivering jump scares, following the formula that has proven commercially successful for the Conjuring universe films.